camera slowly pans across a classic Harley-Davidson motorcycle, focusing on the intricate details of the engine, the chrome gleaming under a soft light. The faint, distant rumble of a motorcycle is heard, gradually growing closer and more distinct. What is that sound? Is it just the mechanics of an engine, the simple combustion of fuel and air, or is it something more? For over a century, one sound has echoed across the highways and backroads of America, a sound that has become more than just noise. It's a heartbeat, a declaration. It's the unmistakable, soul-stirring roar of a Harley-Davidson. Cut to archival footage. Black and white shots of early Harley riders smiling, waving from their bikes. Juxtaposed with modern shots of diverse riders on open roads, mountains, and cityscapes. This isn't just about a motorcycle. It's about what this machine and its unique voice represents. Long before it was a global brand, it was a dream forged in a small shed in Milwaukee by two young men, William S. Harley and Arthur Davidson. They didn't just build a machine. They unknowingly composed an anthem. An anthem for the wanderer, the rebel, the pioneer, and the everyday hero looking for a slice of the horizon. Slow-motion shot of a rider starting a Harley. The engine turns over and the iconic potato-potato idle sound begins. The camera focuses on the vibration of the engine. Listen to that. That asymmetric V-twin engine, with its single-pin crank, creates a rhythm that's almost alive. It's not a high-pitched scream or generic hum. It's a deep, guttural rumble that you feel in your chest. It's a sound so unique, so synonymous with the brand, that Harley-Davidson actually tried to trademark it. Think about that. A sound so powerful, it was considered a signature, as distinct as a logo or a name. Transition to shots of American landscapes. The Grand Canyon, Route 66, the Pacific Coast Highway. A lone Harley cruises along. This sound became the soundtrack to the American dream on two wheels. After World War II, as soldiers returned home, they craved the freedom and camaraderie they had known. Many found it on the back of a Harley. The open road became their new frontier, a place to escape the confines of society, to find themselves against the vast backdrop of the American continent. The roar of their engines was a collective shout of independence. Montage of movie clips and cultural references. Easy Rider, photos of Elvis Presley on a Harley, rock stars and everyday people posing with their bikes. Hollywood quickly picked up on this symbolism. From Marlon Brando in The Wild One to Peter Fonda and Dennis Hopper in Easy Rider, the Harley-Davidson became a cultural icon. It was the chosen ride of the counterculture, a symbol of rebellion against the status quo. But it was never just for the outlaws. It was for anyone who felt the pull of the open road, anyone who heard that engine, and didn't hear noise but heard a promise. Focus on a modern-day group of riders, a mix of men and women of different ages and backgrounds, laughing and talking at a roadside stop. The sound of freedom isn't just one note, it's a chord. It's the thumping bass of the engine, whin-ed with the wind rushing past, the laughter of friends, and the quiet hum of the tires on asphalt. It's the sound of a community forged in chrome and leather, united by a shared passion. It's the sound of disconnecting from the digital world and reconnecting with the real one, 1 mile at a time. Camera pulls back from a stunning, wide vista with a Harley parked looking out over the landscape as the sun sets. The engine is off, and there is a moment of peaceful silence. It's a sound that says, I am here. I am free, and the road ahead is mine to discover. It's more than just an engine. It's the roar of the American spirit. It's a legacy, a culture, and a feeling that can't be replicated. It is, and always will be, the sound of freedom. Slow fade to black. Thank you so much for joining us on this first leg of our journey. If you felt that rumble in your soul, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you don't miss the next chapter of our ride through Harley-Davidson's incredible history. We'd love to hear what the sound of a Harley means to you, so drop a comment below. Until next time, ride safe and keep the spirit of the open road alive. Welcome back to our series on legendary brands. Today, we're journeying back to a time of immense change, to the dawn of the 20th century in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. The year is 1903. The air is thick with the smell of industry, coal smoke, and something new. Opportunity. Imagine a small, unassuming wooden shed, barely 10 feet by 15. It's cramped, cluttered, and probably drafty. This isn't a factory floor. It's the backyard workshop of the Davidson family. Inside, two young men, barely out of their teens, are hunched over a bicycle frame. Their names are Williams Harley and Arthur Davidson. They aren't corporate titans or seasoned engineers. Bill is just 22, a draftsman at a local factory, and Arthur, only 21, is a pattern maker. They're childhood friends, bound by a shared fascination with the newfangled internal combustion engine. Around them, the world is buzzing with progress. The first flight by the Wright brothers is just months away. The Ford Motor Company has just been incorporated. But here, in this shed, the world feels much smaller. It's a world of hand tools, grease-stained fingers, and tireless trial and error. Their project? Not to build a motorcycle as we know it today, but something more fundamental, to take the work out of bicycling. They envisioned a motorized bicycle, a simple machine that could reliably climb the hills of Milwaukee without exhausting its rider. Their first engine design, which Bill Harley had sketched out in 1901, was a small 7.07 cubic inch single-cylinder engine. It was meant to bolt directly onto a standard bicycle frame. Think about that for a second. There were no specialized parts catalogs to order from, no online forums for advice. Every bracket, every fitting had to be conceived, designed, and fabricated by hand. Arthur's brother Walter Davidson, a skilled machinist, would soon join them, bringing his crucial expertise to turn Bill's blueprints into functioning metal parts. This wasn't about fame or fortune, not yet. It was about a shared passion. It was about the pure, simple challenge of making an idea real. They would work late into the night, after their day jobs, fueled by coffee and determination. They would scrounge for materials, modify existing parts, and learn from every single failure. And there were many failures. Early attempts were underpowered, chains snapped, frames bent under the vibration. But with each setback, their resolve only hardened. They weren't just building a machine. They were building their knowledge, their skills, and their belief in what was possible. This humble shed was more than just a workshop. It was an incubator of dreams. It's where the foundational DNA of Harley-Davidson was forged: resilience, craftsmanship, and a relentless pursuit of improvement. The first functioning prototype that rolled out of this shed wasn't a sleek, chrome-plated beast. It was a utilitarian, somewhat clumsy-looking contraption. It was nicknamed the Silent Gray Fellow, but it worked. It had a heartbeat. It was the physical manifestation of a dream that began with two friends, a simple idea, and a whole lot of grit. What's fascinating is how this small-scale, personal project quickly became a family affair. Arthur and Walter's brother, William A. Davidson, who was a tool foreman at a railroad workshop, also lent his skills and support. The Davidson family matriarch, Janet, is even said to have painted the pinstripes on some of the very first fuel tanks with a steady hand. This wasn't a company. It was a collaborative effort rooted in family and friendship, all happening within the four walls of that tiny wooden structure. The scale of what they were attempting, with the resources they had, is truly astounding. They were pioneering a new form of transportation from scratch. They were a tiny startup in a vast industrial landscape, armed with little more than their own ingenuity. That first successful machine wasn't just a product. It was a promise. A promise of freedom, of mobility, and of a new kind of adventure. It was the spark that would ignite a global phenomenon, a cultural icon that would be known simply as Harley. This story is a powerful reminder that every great journey begins with a single step, or in this case, a single turn of the pedal assist. It proves that innovation doesn't always come from massive research labs or corporate boardrooms. Sometimes it's born in a backyard shed, from the hands and hearts of determined dreamers. The legend of Harley-Davidson wasn't built on a foundation of concrete and steel, but on the simple wooden planks of a Milwaukee shed in 1903. Thank you so much for joining us on this trip back in time. It's a story that truly inspires. If you enjoyed this chapter of the Harley-Davidson story, please hit that like button. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next part of our journey. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, ride on and dream big. Video begins. Hello everyone, and welcome back to our journey through the history of a legend. In our last chapter, we saw the humble beginnings of Harley-Davidson, a dream taking shape in a tiny 10 by -15-foot shed. But that shed, as small as it was, held an idea so powerful it was about to pull an entire family into its orbit. Today, in Chapter 3, Brothers of the Open Road, we witness the moment a backyard project transforms into a true family enterprise. The year is 1903. The first functioning Harley-Davidson prototype has sputtered to life, a testament to the hard work of Williams, Harley, and Arthur Davidson. But they quickly realized that to turn this noisy, vibrating machine into a reliable, marketable motorcycle, they needed more than just a good idea. They needed more hands, more expertise, and more capital. They needed family. Arthur Davidson knew exactly who to turn to. He wrote a letter to his older brother, Walter Davidson, who was working as a skilled railroad machinist in Parsons, Kansas. The letter was filled with the infectious excitement of their new invention. Arthur described the motor bicycle and painted a picture of a future where these machines would conquer the roads. He invited Walter to come to Milwaukee for his upcoming wedding, but the real invitation was to come see the machine and hopefully join the team. Walter, a man known for his meticulous craftsmanship and no-nonsense attitude, was intrigued. The promise of building something new, something from the ground up, was a powerful lure. He packed his bags for Milwaukee, ostensibly for the wedding, but with a toolmaker's curiosity burning in his mind. When Walter arrived and saw the prototype, he wasn't just impressed. He was captivated. He immediately recognized both the genius of the design and the areas where his machinist skills could make a significant difference. He saw the potential not just for a hobby, but for a real business. Walter Davidson didn't just decide to help. He decided to stay. He quit his secure railroad job in Kansas and threw his lot in with his brother and Bill Harley. This was a pivotal moment. Walter brought a level of professional manufacturing experience that the young venture desperately needed. He was the get-it-done guy, the one who could turn blueprints into perfectly milled engine components. But the family reunion wasn't over. The youngest of the Davidson clan, William A. Davidson, was also watching this exciting development. As a tool foreman at a local railroad shop, William was a master of his craft, known for his precision and his ability to manage a workshop. He saw the passion and the potential brewing in that little shed, and he couldn't stay on the sidelines. He too joined the fledgling company. With William A. Davidson on board, the final piece of the founding quartet fell into place. Now, it wasn't just two friends tinkering in a shed. It was a powerhouse of four distinct but complementary talents. You had William Harley, the visionary engineer and draftsman. You had Arthur Davidson, the charismatic salesman and business strategist. You had Walter Davidson, the hands-on master machinist and test rider who would become the company's first president. And you had William A. Davidson, the tool room expert who ensured that every single part was made to the highest possible standard. This wasn't just a partnership. It was a brotherhood. They were united by blood, by friendship, and by a shared, unshakable belief in their machine. This family bond became the bedrock of the company's culture. It was a culture of hard work, mutual respect, and a relentless pursuit of quality. They weren't just building motorcycles. They were building a legacy, piece by piece, together. The little shed, which had been built by their cabinetmaker father, now hummed with a new level of activity. The combined skills of the four men accelerated development dramatically. Walter's expertise allowed them to produce more durable and reliable engine parts. William's toolmaking prowess meant they could create the jigs and fixtures needed for more consistent production. Arthur started to think bigger, envisioning sales beyond their immediate neighborhood. And Bill Harley continued to refine the engine, always looking for more power and greater efficiency. The sign they informally hung on their shed door, Harley-Davidson Motor Co., was no longer just a hopeful name, it was a declaration. It represented the fusion of four men's dreams into a single, tangible reality. The open road was calling, and now a band of brothers was ready to answer that call. Not just with one motorcycle, but with an entire company built on grit, skill, and family loyalty. Their shared vision would soon propel them out of that small shed and onto the world stage. And that's where we'll leave it for today. The team is assembled, the vision is clear, and the engine of the Harley-Davidson Motor Company is truly starting to roar. Thank you so much for joining me for this chapter. The story is just getting started, and the road ahead is full of twists and turns. If you're enjoying this series, please hit that like button, and be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss Chapter 4. We'd love to have you along for the entire ride. Until next time, ride safe and keep the dream alive. Welcome back to our journey through the roaring history of Harley-Davidson. Today we're diving into Chapter 4, The First Riders. Who were these pioneers, these daredevils who first threw a leg over these new, unproven machines? Let's find out. Picture this. It's the early 1900s. The world is a patchwork of horse-drawn carts and the occasional sputtering automobile. Roads are mostly dirt, rutted, and unpredictable. In this world, a new sound begins to echo from a small wooden shed in Milwaukee. The distinctive rumble of a Harley-Davidson. But a motorcycle is nothing without a rider. The very first machines, built by hand with painstaking care by Williams Harley and the Davidson brothers, weren't sold in fancy showrooms. They were sold to neighbors, to friends, to curious locals who saw the potential in these two-wheeled contraptions. These were the true early adopters. They weren't just buying a vehicle. They were buying into a dream, a vision of personal freedom that hadn't really existed before. Imagine being one of them. You've just taken delivery of your brand new single-cylinder Harley. There's no electric start. You're pedaling like a bicycle to get the engine to catch. Then pop, 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 it roars to life. The whole machine vibrates, a living thing beneath you. The controls are basic, the ride is rough, but the feeling is pure exhilaration. You're moving faster than a horse, an open road stretching out before you. These first riders became rolling advertisements. As they rumbled through small towns, heads turned. People stopped and stared. What was this noisy, fast, mechanical beast? Every journey was a demonstration. They showed their communities that these machines were reliable, that they could handle the terrible roads, and most importantly, that they were incredible fun. The small-town roads of Wisconsin and beyond became the ultimate testing grounds. Every pothole, every muddy patch, every steep hill was a challenge that, when conquered, proved the mettle of both man and machine. Word of mouth was everything. A farmer who could now check his fence lines in a fraction of the time, a doctor who could make house calls to remote patients faster than ever before, these were the stories that built the brand's reputation. These weren't just hobbyists. They were practical people using a revolutionary new tool to improve their lives. Each satisfied customer was a testament to the quality and durability the founders were so obsessed with. But it wasn't just about practicality. A new breed of rider was emerging, the racer. From the very beginning, Harley-Davidson understood a fundamental truth: racing sells. Winning on Sunday meant sales on Monday. And who better to pilot these machines than the man who knew them inside and out? Walter Davidson, one of the founding brothers, wasn't just a businessman. He was a fearless competitor. In 1908, Walter entered the grueling 7th Annual Federation of American Motorcyclists endurance and reliability contest in the Catskill Mountains of New York. This wasn't a pristine track. This was a 2-day, 396-mile torture test over treacherous mountain roads. Competitors faced steep grades, sharp turns, and surfaces that could break lesser machines. Many didn't finish. But Walter and his Harley-Davidson were different. He rode with a fierce determination, pushing his stock single-cylinder bike to its limits. He didn't just finish. He achieved a perfect score of 1,000 points, an incredible feat that stunned the motorcycling world. He demonstrated that a Harley-Davidson wasn't a fragile toy. It was a tough-as-nails machine that could take whatever you threw at it and keep going. This victory was a massive turning point. It put Harley-Davidson on the national map. Suddenly, racers all over the country wanted to compete on a Harley. Local heroes and aspiring champions began to emerge, taking their Harleys to dirt tracks, board tracks, and hill climbs that were popping up across America. These early racing events were raw and incredibly dangerous. Board tracks, or motordromes, were massive oval arenas made of wooden planks, often banked at dizzying angles. Riders would hit speeds over 100 miles per hour with no brakes, their tires mere inches from their rivals. The roar of the engines was deafening, the smell of castor oil and gasoline thick in the air. Splinters from the track could become deadly projectiles. The men who raced on these tracks were a special kind of brave. They were household names, heroes to a public hungry for speed and spectacle. Riders like Red Parkhurst, Otto Walker, and Ray Weishar became legends, forming the core of Harley-Davidson's first factory racing team, famously known as the Wrecking Crew. Why the Wrecking Crew? Because that's what they did. They wrecked the competition. For years, they dominated American racing, setting speed records and winning championships. Their success was a direct result of the relentless innovation happening back in the factory. The racetrack was the ultimate laboratory. Lessons learned from a brutal race on Saturday were immediately applied to the design of the production bikes that rolled out of the factory on Monday. The V-twin engine, introduced in 1909, was a game-changer. Its power and torque were perfect for the demands of racing, and the wrecking crew proved its superiority time and time again. They established a legacy of performance that is still central to the Harley-Davidson identity today. Their victories weren't just about trophies. They were about proving to the world that Harley-Davidson built the fastest, strongest, and most reliable motorcycles you could buy. These first riders, the everyday pioneers and the legendary racers, were the ones who forged the soul of Harley-Davidson. They were rebels, innovators, and adventurers who weren't afraid to push the limits. They took hand-built machines from a small Milwaukee shed and, through their courage and passion, transformed them into an American icon. They weren't just riding motorcycles. They were writing the first thrilling chapter of a legend. Thanks for joining us for this look back at the origins of Harley-Davidson's riding culture. The story is far from over, so make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you don't miss the next chapter in our series. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, ride safe. Welcome back to our series on the history of Harley-Davidson. We've journeyed through the early days, from the humble shed to the first V-twin engine. But today, we're diving into something truly iconic, a symbol that would become synonymous with freedom, rebellion, and the open road itself. This is the story of how a brand became a legend. Let's talk about the birth of the Bar and Shield. The year is 1910. Harley-Davidson is no longer just a backyard project. It's a growing force in the American motorcycle industry. They're producing more bikes than ever, winning races, and capturing the public's imagination. But as the company grew, it needed more than just a great product. It needed an identity. It needed a symbol that could be recognized instantly. A mark that would tell the world exactly what it stood for. Up until this point, the name Harley-Davidson was simply painted on the fuel tanks in various scripts and fonts. It was functional, but it lacked the punch, the staying power of a true brand mark. The founders knew they needed something that was both simple and powerful, something that would look as good on a dealership sign as it would on the side of a thundering motorcycle. So in 1910, the first version of the legendary Bar and Shield logo was born. Imagine it, a simple, strong shield shape. Across the middle, a bold horizontal bar. And inside, the words that were already making history, Harley-Davidson. It was brilliant in its simplicity. The shield, a timeless symbol of protection, strength, and honor, perfectly captured the robust and reliable nature of their machines. The bar added a sense of stability and structure. It wasn't just a random design. This logo was a statement. It was a promise. When you saw that Bar and Shield, you knew you were looking at a product of quality. You were looking at a piece of American craftsmanship, built with pride by people who understood machinery. It was a mark of authenticity in an era of rapid industrial change. The company filed for its first U.S. patent on the logo in 1911. From that moment on, the Bar and Shield began to appear everywhere. It was stamped onto engine parts, affixed to fuel tanks, and printed in advertisements. It quickly became more than just a corporate logo. It became a badge of honor for the riders. Think about what it meant to own a motorcycle back then. It was an adventure. It was a declaration of independence. And having that Bar and Shield on your machine connected you to a community, a family of like-minded individuals who craved the thrill of the ride. It said, "I'm part of this. I ride a Harley." The design itself was incredibly versatile. Over the next century, it would be adapted, colored, and stylized in countless ways, but the core elements, the bar and the shield, would always remain. This adaptability is a key reason for its longevity. It could look classic and nostalgic one moment and bold and modern the next, all while retaining its core identity. Compare it to other logos of the era. Many were ornate, complex, and tied to the artistic styles of the time. The Bar and Shield, however, was clean, industrial, and timeless. It was as no-nonsense as the motorcycles themselves. It didn't need frills or flourishes to convey its message of strength and durability. The introduction of this logo marked a pivotal moment for Harley-Davidson. It was the point where the company transitioned from being just a manufacturer to becoming a true brand. A brand is a story, a set of values, a promise to the customer. The Bar and Shield was the cover of that storybook. It invited you in. For the riders, putting on a jacket or a hat with that logo wasn't just about showing brand loyalty. It was about adopting a lifestyle. It was about aligning yourself with the values the logo represented: strength, independence, and a deep appreciation for American engineering. The logo gave the growing tribe of Harley riders a flag to rally behind. And rally they did. As the years went on, the bar and shield would be seen at racetracks, on cross-country treks, and at motorcycle gatherings across the nation. It became a symbol of a uniquely American subculture, recognized and respected around the globe. It was a mark of pride, not just for the company that created it, but for the millions of people who lived and breathed the Harley-Davidson life. The creation of the bar and shield in 1910 was a masterstroke of branding. Long before branding was a common buzzword. It was an intuitive move that understood the power of a simple, potent symbol. It encapsulated everything the Davidson brothers and William Harley were trying to build. A company that stood for strength, quality, and the enduring spirit of American ingenuity. It was more than just a logo. It was the soul of the company, cast in metal and printed in ink. It was, and still is, a legend. Thanks so much for watching this chapter of our journey. The story of Harley-Davidson is only just getting started, and the adventures are about to get even bigger. If you enjoyed this look at the birth of an icon, please hit that like button, and be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next episode. We'll see you on the road. Video opens with grainy black and white footage of early 20th century life, transitioning to images of newspaper headlines announcing the outbreak of World War I. The mood shifts from peaceful to tense. Hello everyone, and welcome back to our journey through the epic history of Harley-Davidson. In our last chapter, we saw how a small shed in Milwaukee grew into a powerhouse of American industry. But as the world plunged into chaos, this symbol of freedom would be called to serve a new, grimmer purpose. This is Chapter 6, Riding into War. The year is 1914. The world holds its breath as the great powers of Europe march into what would become the Great War. For 3 long years, the United States maintained a delicate neutrality. Back home, Harley-Davidson was thriving. They were producing powerful, reliable machines, and the open road was their kingdom. Their motorcycles were symbols of adventure, of breaking away from the everyday. But the distant drums of war were growing louder, and soon they would beat on America's shores. In April 1917, the United States officially entered World War I. The nation mobilized on an unprecedented scale, and every facet of American industry was called upon to contribute to the war effort. The U.S. military needed to modernize, and fast. They needed a way to move troops, supplies, and information quickly and efficiently across the brutal, crater-scarred landscapes of the Western Front. The age of cavalry charges with horses was over. The age of mechanized warfare had begun. And what machine was perfectly suited for this new reality? It was rugged, it was fast, and it could go where larger vehicles couldn't. It was the motorcycle. And the U.S. War Department knew exactly who to call. Harley-Davidson, with its reputation for bulletproof reliability, was the perfect partner. The government placed massive orders. Almost overnight, Harley-Davidson's production lines shifted focus from civilian bikes to military machines. The iconic olive-drab color, which would become synonymous with military vehicles for decades, was first widely applied to these wartime Harleys. They were no longer just for joyriding. They were instruments of war. Think about the battlefield of World War I. We're talking about a landscape of mud, trenches, and shell craters. Roads were often non-existent, destroyed by constant artillery fire. This is where the motorcycle, specifically the Harley-Davidson J-Series, proved its immense value. Lighter and more nimble than the bulky trucks and cars of the era, these bikes could navigate the treacherous terrain, delivering vital messages where no other vehicle could reach. The role of the motorcycle messenger, or dispatch rider, became one of the most dangerous and critical jobs in the Army. These brave soldiers would ride through a storm of machine gun fire and artillery shells to deliver orders and intelligence that could literally mean the difference between victory and defeat, life and death for thousands of their comrades. Their lifeline? The dependable V-twin engine roaring between their legs. The reliability of their Harley wasn't a luxury. It was a matter of survival. But it wasn't just messengers. Harley-Davidsons were used for a huge range of tasks. They were fitted with sidecars to carry ammunition, machine guns, and even to evacuate wounded soldiers from the front lines. They were used for reconnaissance, scouting ahead of infantry to report on enemy positions. The motorcycle had become the modern-day warhorse, and Harley-Davidson was its premier breeder. The numbers are staggering. Of the roughly 80,000 motorcycles purchased by the U.S. military during the war, Nearly 20,000 were Harley-Davidsons. That's a massive portion of the company's total output. Imagine, 1 out of every 4 motorcycles the military used was a Harley. They were shipped overseas by the thousand, becoming a familiar sight from the training camps in America to the battlefields of France. This wartime service had a profound impact on the company and its image. When soldiers saw a Harley-Davidson bouncing through the mud, they saw a symbol of American industrial might and ingenuity. It was a piece of home, a reliable friend in the most hostile environment imaginable. The brand's reputation for toughness, which was already strong, was now forged in the fires of global conflict. Harley-Davidson wasn't just a motorcycle company anymore. It was a wartime hero. The war also served as the ultimate proving ground. The extreme conditions of the front lines provided an invaluable, if brutal, testing environment. Every breakdown, every failure, provided a lesson that engineers back in Milwaukee would use to improve future designs. The engines had to be stronger, the frames more durable, the tires more resilient. The lessons learned in the trenches of France would directly influence the development of Harley-Davidson motorcycles for decades to come. And let's not forget the soldiers themselves. When the war finally ended in 1918 and these young men returned home, they brought with them a deep familiarity and respect for the machines that had carried them through the conflict. They had seen firsthand what a Harley-Davidson could do. For many, their first experience with a motorcycle was on a military-issue bike. This created a new generation of loyal customers and enthusiasts. Riding a Harley wasn't just about fun anymore. It was about connecting with a shared experience, a brotherhood forged in the crucible of war. The war effort also propelled Harley-Davidson to become the largest motorcycle manufacturer in the world by 1920. While their competitors had struggled, Harley's government contracts had ensured its stability and growth. They emerged from the war not just as a survivor, but as a dominant global force. Their name was now known and respected across the Atlantic. So as the world celebrated the armistice and began to heal its wounds, Harley-Davidson stood at a crossroads. It had proven its mettle on the battlefield and earned a place in the hearts of a generation. The Roaring Twenties were just around the corner, a decade of prosperity and cultural change. How would our wartime hero adapt to peacetime? What new adventures lay on the horizon? That's the story we'll explore in our next chapter. We'll see how Harley-Davidson navigated the booming post-war economy and cemented its status as an icon of American culture. Thank you so much for joining me on this incredible ride through history. If you're enjoying this series, please don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the notification bell so you don't miss the next chapter. It really helps us continue to tell these amazing stories. Until next time, ride safe and keep the spirit of adventure alive. Hello, history buffs and road warriors, and welcome back to our series on the legendary Harley-Davidson. Today, we're firing up the engine for Chapter 7, cruising into one of the most exciting, transformative, and glamorous decades in American history, the Roaring Twenties. The Great War was over, the dust was settling, and a new spirit of optimism, adventure, and modernity was sweeping the nation. And right at the heart of this cultural explosion, you'd find the unmistakable rumble of a Harley-Davidson motorcycle. The post-war era wasn't just a return to normalcy. It was a leap into the future. For millions of Americans, the motorcycle, and specifically the Harley, became the ultimate symbol of this new age. It represented more than just transportation. It embodied a powerful sense of freedom, a desire to explore, and an embrace of speed and technology that defined the decade. Soldiers returning from Europe had seen the world and weren't content to stay put. The open road called to them, promising new horizons and untold adventures, and Harley-Davidson provided the perfect machine to answer that call. In the early 1920s, Harley-Davidson wasn't just building on its pre-war success. It was innovating at a breathtaking pace. The company knew that to lead the pack, they had to be faster, more reliable, and more stylish than ever before. A major breakthrough came with the introduction of the 74 cubic inch V-twin engine in 1921. This powerhouse, known affectionately as the JD, became the new standard for performance. It offered more power, more speed, and a smoother ride, making long-distance travel not just possible, but genuinely enjoyable. Imagine the thrill of leaving the city limits behind, the powerful thrum of that V-twin beneath you as you raced towards the horizon on a freshly paved highway. This wasn't just a ride. It was a declaration of independence. The 20s also saw Harley cementing its reputation in the world of racing. Tracks and hill climbs across the country became battlegrounds where manufacturers proved their mettle. Harley's factory racing team, famously known as the Wrecking Crew, was utterly dominant. Riders like Joe Petrali became national heroes, pushing their machines to the absolute limit and shattering speed records. On dirt ovals and board tracks, the sight of a Harley-Davidson streaking past the checkered flag became a familiar one. These victories weren't just about trophies. They were powerful marketing tools. Every win reinforced the public's perception of Harley as the pinnacle of performance and durability. When you bought a Harley, you weren't just buying a motorcycle. You were buying a piece of that championship pedigree. But the appeal of Harley-Davidson extended far beyond the racetrack. The 1920s was the decade of style, and Harley embraced this with open arms. The bikes themselves became more aesthetically refined. In 1925, the company introduced the now iconic teardrop-shaped gas tank. This wasn't just a functional change. It was a design statement. It gave the motorcycles a sleek, streamlined, and modern look that was perfectly in tune with the Art Deco sensibilities of the era. The bikes were no longer just utilitarian machines. They were works of art, rolling sculptures that turned heads wherever they went. Color options expanded beyond the traditional olive drab, allowing riders to express their own personal style. A Harley was a status symbol, a sign that you were part of the modern world. The rise of the automobile and the subsequent good roads movement also played a crucial role in Harley's success. As state and federal governments invested heavily in paving a national highway system, the country opened up like never before. Previously arduous journeys became pleasant day trips. For a motorcyclist, this was a dream come true. The new, smooth asphalt roads were perfect for cruising. Riders could now travel further, faster, and more comfortably than ever. Motorcycle clubs flourished, organizing weekend rallies, group tours, and scavenger hunts. These clubs fostered a powerful sense of community and brotherhood, a culture that remains a cornerstone of the Harley-Davidson experience to this day. They were pioneers, exploring the newly accessible American landscape on two wheels. Harley-Davidson's marketing during this period was brilliant. Their advertisements didn't just sell a machine. They sold a lifestyle. They depicted happy couples enjoying scenic picnics, groups of friends embarking on cross-country adventures, and rugged individuals charting their own course. The message was clear: a Harley-Davidson was your ticket to freedom, romance, and excitement. They effectively tapped into the cultural zeitgeist of the Roaring '20s, positioning their motorcycles as an essential tool for the modern, adventurous American. The company understood that people weren't just buying steel and rubber. They were buying a dream. The dream of the open road. The company also expanded its reach globally. By the mid-1920s, Harley-Davidson had become the largest motorcycle manufacturer in the world, with dealerships in dozens of countries. The brand's reputation for toughness and reliability made it a popular choice for police departments, not just in the US but around the globe. The sight of a uniformed officer on a gleaming Harley became a symbol of authority and modern law enforcement. This commercial success allowed the company to weather economic ups and downs and continue to invest in research and development, ensuring they stayed ahead of the competition. However, the decade wasn't without its challenges. The rise of the affordable automobile, particularly Henry Ford's Model T, presented a new form of competition. For many families, a car offered more practical, all-weather transportation. But Harley-Davidson cleverly navigated this by positioning the motorcycle not as a direct competitor to the car, but as a companion to it. The car was for family errands. The motorcycle was for personal freedom and exhilarating recreation. It was the vehicle you chose when you wanted to feel the wind, connect with the road, and experience the journey in a much more visceral way. As the 1920s roared to a close, Harley-Davidson stood as a titan of American industry and a cultural icon. It had successfully navigated the transition from a tool of war to a symbol of peace, prosperity, and personal liberty. The bikes built during this decade laid the groundwork for everything that was to come. The teardrop tank, the powerful V-twin engine, and the culture of community and adventure all became enduring hallmarks of the brand. The Roaring '20s had set the stage, paving the highways and igniting a passion for two-wheeled travel that would burn brightly for generations. Harley-Davidson wasn't just along for the ride. It was leading the charge, its iconic rumble providing the soundtrack for an era of unprecedented change and boundless optimism. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey back to the Roaring '20s. It was a truly pivotal time for Harley-Davidson and for America. If you enjoyed this chapter, please give this video a thumbs up. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you don't miss our next installment, where we'll see how Harley-Davidson navigated the turbulent times of the Great Depression. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, ride safe and keep exploring. Welcome back to our journey through the history of Harley-Davidson. Today we're diving into Chapter 8, The Great Depression, Survival on Two Wheels. The Roaring Twenties had been a time of incredible growth, but as the decade closed, the world plunged into an economic abyss. For Harley-Davidson, this wasn't just a challenge. It was a fight for its very existence. The stock market crash of 1929 sent shockwaves across the globe. Suddenly, luxury items like motorcycles were the first things people cut from their budgets. Sales plummeted. In 1929, Harley sold over 21,000 bikes. Many of Harley's competitors didn't make it. The landscape of the American motorcycle industry became a graveyard of failed companies. Indian, Harley's arch-rival, was also struggling immensely. So, how did Harley-Davidson manage to keep its doors open when so many others were forced to shut them for good? The answer lies in a combination of shrewd business decisions, unwavering loyalty, and relentless innovation. First, the company diversified. Realizing that motorcycle sales alone couldn't sustain them, the leadership got creative. Harley-Davidson started manufacturing industrial engines called service cars. These were three-wheeled utility vehicles, essentially a motorcycle front end with a large cargo box on the back. They were perfect for small businesses, delivery services, they were perfect for small businesses, and even police departments for things like parking enforcement. The service car was a practical, affordable workhorse, and it provided a crucial revenue stream that helped keep the factory running and workers employed during the leanest years. It was a brilliant pivot that showed Harley wasn't just about fun. It was about utility. But diversification alone wasn't enough. The second pillar of their survival was their incredibly loyal customer base. Harley riders weren't just customers. They were family. They were a tribe. These were people who lived and breathed the brand. Even when money was tight, their Harley was often the last thing they'd consider giving up. It was more than a vehicle. It was their identity, their escape from the harsh realities of daily life. This passionate community kept the spirit of Harley-Davidson alive, sharing parts, helping each other with repairs, and ensuring that the rumble of a V-twin never faded from America's backroads. Police departments and government agencies also played a vital role. Throughout the years, Harley had built a strong reputation for producing reliable and powerful machines perfect for law enforcement. During the Depression, these contracts became a lifeline. While individual sales were down, police forces still needed dependable vehicles, and Harley-Davidson was their go-to supplier. These steady, albeit smaller, orders helped maintain a baseline of production and cash flow. While the company was fighting to survive, the engineering department was quietly working on something that would change everything. They knew that when the economy eventually recovered, they needed to be ready with a machine that was not just new, but revolutionary. They were designing the future. This dedication to innovation, even in the face of financial ruin, is perhaps the most inspiring part of Harley's Depression-era story. And then, in 1936, a beacon of hope roared out of the darkness. Harley-Davidson introduced the Model E and LEL, powered by a brand new engine that would become an absolute legend. It was an overhead valve, 61 cubic inch V-twin. Its most distinctive feature was the shape of its rocker boxes, which, to the creative eyes of riders, resembled a clenched fist. They nicknamed it the Knucklehead. The Knucklehead was a masterpiece of engineering. It was more powerful, more efficient, and more reliable than its predecessors. It featured a recirculating oil system, a huge improvement over the old total loss systems that basically left a trail of oil everywhere you went. The new engine, combined with a new frame and a stylish teardrop fuel tank, made the 1936 Harley-Davidson a thing of beauty and a beast on the road. The timing was perfect. By the mid-1930s, the American economy was beginning to show faint signs of recovery. People were starting to have a little extra money again, and they were looking for ways to reclaim the sense of freedom and adventure they had lost. The Knucklehead was the answer. It was a symbol of resilience, a testament to the idea that even in the darkest of times, American ingenuity and spirit could not be extinguished. The release of the Knucklehead wasn't just a product launch. It was a declaration. It's said that Harley-Davidson had not only survived the Great Depression, but had emerged from it stronger, tougher, and more innovative than ever before. It set a new standard for motorcycle performance and design, cementing Harley's position as the leader of the pack. The knucklehead engine would go on to power Harley-Davidson motorcycles for over a decade and remains one of the most iconic and sought-after engines in motorcycling history. The 1930s tested Harley-Davidson to its absolute limits. The company faced financial ruin and the potential end of its story. But through clever diversification with the Cervicar, the unwavering loyalty of its rider community, and a courageous commitment to innovation that gave us the legendary knucklehead Harley-Davidson survived. It proved that it was more than just a company. It was a symbol of American endurance. This chapter of Harley's history is a powerful lesson in resilience. It shows that when faced with overwhelming hardship, the right combination of pragmatism, passion, and forward-thinking can not only ensure survival, but also lay the groundwork for future greatness. Thanks for watching and riding along with us through this incredible chapter. If you enjoyed this story of survival and innovation, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you don't miss our next episode, where we'll see how Harley-Davidson answers the call to duty as the world once again descends into war. See you on the next one. When the world once again found itself teetering on the precipice of a global conflict, a familiar roar was about to echo across the battlefields. The drums of war were beating in the late 1930s, and as tensions escalated into the Second World War, nations scrambled to mobilize their forces. Among the steel, grit, and courage being mustered, an American legend was called upon to serve once more. This is the story of how Harley-Davidson didn't just return to war but became a symbol of freedom itself. Welcome back to our series on the epic history of Harley-Davidson. In our last chapter, we navigated the treacherous roads of the Great Depression, a time that tested the company's very soul. We saw how Harley-Davidson, through sheer innovation and resilience, managed to survive while many others fell. They introduced new designs, cultivated a loyal community, and weathered the economic storm. But just as the clouds of the Depression began to part, darker, more ominous storm clouds were gathering over Europe and the Pacific. The world was heading for war, and Harley-Davidson was about to answer the call of duty in a way that would cement its place in history forever. As the 1930s drew to a close, Harley-Davidson was already in a strong position. The introduction of the L model, affectionately nicknamed the Knucklehead for its distinct rocker boxes, had revolutionized the motorcycle world in 1936. It was powerful, reliable, and it set a new standard for V-twin engines. This engineering prowess would prove to be invaluable. The U.S. military, watching the blitzkrieg tactics employed by Germany, which heavily utilized motorcycles for reconnaissance and rapid troop movement, knew they needed a robust and dependable machine for their own soldiers. They needed a motorcycle that could handle the harshest conditions imaginable, from the muddy fields of France to the dusty roads of North Africa. They turned to a trusted partner, Harley-Davidson. Harley-Davidson's experience from World War I gave them a significant advantage. They understood the military's needs and the rigorous demands of combat. The company began developing a military-specific model based on their existing 45 cubic inch WL civilian model. This new machine had to be tough, easy to maintain in the field, and adaptable to a variety of tasks. The result was the legendary Harley-Davidson WLA. The W designated the 45 cubic inch flathead engine family. The L stood for high compression, and the A simply stood for Army. This wasn't just a civilian bike painted olive drab. It was a purpose-built war machine. The WLA was stripped down and beefed up. It featured fenders that were raised to prevent mud from clogging the wheels, a heavy-duty luggage rack for carrying gear and radio equipment, and a scabbard for a Thompson submachine gun. It was equipped with blackout lights for stealthy nighttime operations and an oil bath air cleaner to protect the engine from the dust and grit of the front lines. Every component was designed for durability and ease of repair. A soldier with a basic toolkit could perform most maintenance tasks right there in the field. This was crucial, as a breakdown could mean the difference between life and death. Production ramped up at an incredible pace. The Milwaukee factory, which had just survived the Depression, was now running at full tilt. Between 1941 and 1945, Harley-Davidson produced over 90,000 WLA models for the U.S. Army and its allies. These bikes were shipped across the globe, serving in every theater of the war. They were the workhorses of the military police, leading convoys and directing traffic. They were the eyes and ears of reconnaissance units, scouting ahead of the main force. And they were the swift steeds of dispatch riders, braving enemy fire to deliver critical messages when radio silence was mandatory. The WLA's distinctive V-twin rumble became a familiar sound on the front lines. A sound of support, of communication, of the American war effort pushing forward. Soldiers came to rely on their Harleys as much as they did their rifles. These bikes weren't just transport. They were partners. They carried soldiers through mud, snow, and sand across bombed-out cities and rugged countryside. The stories of their endurance are legendary. There are countless accounts of WLAs taking a beating, getting patched up with whatever was available, and roaring right back to life, ready for the next mission. But the WLS impact wasn't limited to the American forces. Through the Lend-Lease Act, thousands of these motorcycles were sent to Allied nations, most notably the Soviet Union. The Russians received over 30,000 WLAs, which they used extensively on the brutal Eastern Front. For the Red Army soldiers fighting in some of the war's harshest conditions, the reliable American motorcycle was a godsend. It gave them a mobility they desperately needed to counter the vast and unforgiving terrain. As Allied forces pushed deeper into occupied Europe, the Harley-Davidson WLA was often one of the first pieces of American equipment that liberated citizens would see. Imagine a war-torn French village, silent and fearful under occupation. Then in the distance, a low rumble grows. A lone rider on an olive-drab motorcycle appears, an American soldier, a sign that liberation is at hand. The bike, dusty and rugged, becomes a powerful symbol. It's not just a machine. It represents freedom, resilience, and the promise of a new dawn. It was for this reason that the Harley-Davidson WL earned a new, powerful nickname, the Liberator. The name stuck because it was true. In the hands of Allied soldiers, these motorcycles helped liberate towns, cities, and entire nations. They were a tangible piece of the force that was pushing back tyranny. The image of a GI on his Harley, perhaps sharing a piece of chocolate with a child in a newly freed town, is an iconic image of the end of the war. It captures the spirit of the American soldier and the role their trusty machines played in that historic victory. The war solidified Harley-Davidson's identity not just as a motorcycle manufacturer, but as a patriotic American institution. When the war finally ended in 1945, the world celebrated. And as millions of soldiers began their long journey home, many of them brought their experiences with them. For countless veterans, their time on a Harley-Davidson WLA had been their first real experience with motorcycling. They had learned to ride, maintain, and respect these machines under the most extreme circumstances. They had developed a bond with the bike that had carried them safely through the war. It was a bond forged in mud, sweat, and adrenaline. This shared experience would have a profound and lasting impact on post-war America and on Harley-Davidson itself. These returning veterans didn't want to give up the freedom and camaraderie they had found on two wheels. The surplus WLAs that were sold off by the military became the foundation of a new, burgeoning motorcycle culture. Veterans bought these affordable, rugged bikes and began customizing them, stripping them down even further to make them lighter and faster. This was the birth of the bobber and chopper scene, a movement that would define the look and attitude of motorcycling for decades to come. So, as we close this chapter, we see Harley-Davidson emerging from World War II not just as a survivor, but as a triumphant hero. The LibULA, the Liberator, had carried the banner of freedom across the globe and had introduced a whole new generation to the thrill of riding. The company's contribution to the war effort was immense, and the legacy of these military machines would shape the very future of motorcycling culture. The war was over, but a new rebellion, a cultural revolution on two wheels, was just beginning. Thank you so much for joining us for this incredible chapter in Harley-Davidson's history. The story is far from over. In our next episode, we'll dive headfirst into the post-war boom and the rise of a new kind of rider, the outlaw, the rebel, the icon. It's a story of cultural change you won't want to miss. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, and make sure you resubscribed with notifications turned on so you don't miss the next part of our journey. We'll see you on the road. Welcome back to our journey through the roaring history of Harley-Davidson. Today, we're diving into a chapter that forever changed the image of motorcycling. The birth of the rebel. Picture this. America, fresh out of the Second World War, the fighting is over, But for thousands of returning soldiers, the transition back to civilian life isn't so simple. They've experienced the intense camaraderie and adrenaline of combat. And now the quiet life of picket fences and 9-to-5 jobs feels empty. They're searching for a new tribe, a new purpose, a new thrill, and they find it on two wheels. This is the fertile ground from which the outlaw motorcycle club springs. These weren't necessarily criminals in the modern sense. They were outsiders, men who didn't fit the mold of post-war suburban America. They were looking for the brotherhood they'd lost, a sense of belonging on their own terms. And what machine becomes the symbol of this new, untamed spirit? None other than the Harley-Davidson. Why Harley? Well, after the war, the military sold off thousands of surplus WLA models, the Liberator. They were cheap, powerful, and incredibly durable. For these returning GIS, the Harley wasn't just a machine. It was a familiar friend. They'd ridden them in the war, and now, back home, they were tearing them down, stripping them of anything unnecessary: fenders, bulky seats, anything that weighed them down. This was the birth of the Bobber, a raw, minimalist machine built for pure, unadulterated speed and freedom. This act of customization was a statement in itself. It was a rejection of the mainstream, a way to make their mark on the world. Each bike became a unique expression of its owner's personality. They were loud, they were fast, and they were unapologetically different. The thundering V-twin engine wasn't just noise. It was the heartbeat of a counterculture. Soon, these riders started forming clubs. Names that would become legendary began to emerge from the haze of exhaust and rebellion. The Booze Fighters, the Pissed-Off Bastards of Bloomington, and most famously, the Hells Angels. These clubs weren't just about riding. They were about a lifestyle. They created their own rules, their own hierarchies, and their own unmistakable identity, symbolized by the leather cuts, or vests, adorned with their club patches. The public's perception of these clubs was cemented by a single event in 1947 in Hollister, California. A motorcycle rally got a little out of hand, and the media, hungry for a sensational story, ran with it. Life magazine published a staged photo of a burly-looking fellow on a Harley, surrounded by beer bottles. The headline screamed about the Hollister riot. Was it a full-blown riot? Not really, but the image stuck. The motorcyclist was no longer just a hobbyist. He was a menace. A one-percenter, a term supposedly coined to say that 99% of motorcyclists were law-abiding citizens. But it was that 1% who were the outlaws. Instead of shying away from this label, the clubs embraced it. They wore the 1% patch as a badge of honor, a declaration of their separation from polite society. Then Hollywood got involved. In 1953, Marlon Brando, in the film The Wild One, immortalized the image of the leather-clad biker rebel. When asked, "What are you rebelling against, Johnny?" his iconic reply is, "What do ya got?" That line perfectly captured the spirit of defiance. Brando rode a triumph in the film, but the cultural impact solidified the image of the outlaw biker, an image that became inextricably linked with Harley-Davidson in the public mind. Harley-Davidson, the company, had a complicated relationship with this new identity. On one hand, the outlaw image was a public relations nightmare. They were trying to sell motorcycles to families, to the everyday American. But on the other hand, it was undeniably cool. This rebellious spirit made Harleys the ultimate symbol of freedom and defiance. You couldn't buy that kind of marketing. The very thing that made them seem dangerous also made them incredibly desirable. This wasn't just a uniquely American phenomenon either. The spirit of rebellion on two wheels spread across the globe. From the rockers in England clashing with the mods, to biker clubs forming in Europe and Australia, the Harley became a universal symbol for those who chose to live outside the lines. It represented a raw, unfiltered freedom that resonated with youth everywhere who felt constrained by conformity. The bikes themselves continued to evolve. The introduction of the Panhead engine and later the iconic Sportster in 1957 provided even more powerful and customizable platforms for this generation of riders. The Sportster, in particular, was seen as a nimble, stripped-down performance machine, a rebel's hot rod. So as we close this chapter, we see Harley-Davidson transformed. It's no longer just the company that survived the Depression or helped win the war. It's now the heart and soul of a cultural rebellion. Through the rise of outlaw clubs and their portrayal in media, the Harley became more than a motorcycle. It became an icon, a legend, a rolling thunder of defiance. It was the choice of the free, the wild, and the untamed. The rebel had been born and he rode a Harley. Thanks for riding along with us for this chapter. The story is far from over, and the road ahead has plenty more twists and turns. If you're enjoying this journey, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you don't miss what's coming next. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, keep the rubber side down. Hey everyone, and welcome back to our journey through the roaring history of Harley-Davidson. Today, we're firing up the engine for a ride straight into the heart of Hollywood, exploring how the silver screen transformed a motorcycle into a cultural icon. This is Chapter 11, Hollywood and the Open Road. Before the 1950s, motorcycles in movies were often just background props. A simple way to get from point A to point B, but all that was about to change. A storm was brewing, one that would forever link the V-twin rumble with rebellion, freedom, and the American spirit. The fuse was lit in 1953 with a film that would send shockwaves through society, The Wild One. Starring the magnetic Marlon Brando as Johnny Strabler, leader of the Black Rebels Motorcycle Club, the film was a bombshell. Brando, leaning against his 1950 Triumph Thunderbird 6T, exuded a cool, defiant attitude that captivated a generation of restless youth. When asked, "Hey Johnny, what are you rebelling against?" his classic reply, "What do you got?" became the anthem for a generation feeling misunderstood and disconnected from the post-war suburban dream. Now it's a fun fact that Brando himself rode a Triumph in the film, not a Harley, but the public didn't really split hairs. The image was the key: leather jackets, brooding attitude, and the motorcycle gang. The film, loosely based on a real-life event in Hollister, California, painted a picture of bikers as disruptive outsiders. It was sensationalized, of course, but it was powerful. The media ran with this narrative, and suddenly the outlaw biker was born in the public imagination. Harley-Davidson, as the quintessential American motorcycle brand, became the de facto ride for this new archetype, whether they were on screen or not. This outlaw image was a double-edged sword for Harley-Davidson. On one hand, it gave the brand an undeniable edge, an aura of danger and excitement that you couldn't buy with traditional advertising. It screamed authenticity and nonconformity. On the other hand, it worried the more conservative, mainstream customers the company also relied on. But there was no putting the genie back in the bottle. The motorcycle was no longer just a machine. It was a statement. Throughout the late 50s and into the 60s, this image simmered in pop culture. We saw it in B-movies and heard it in rock and roll. The motorcycle became a symbol for breaking away, for leaving the mundane world behind in a cloud of dust. It represented the call of the open road, a theme deeply woven into the American identity. The idea that you could just hop on your bike and ride toward the horizon, free from the constraints of society, was incredibly seductive. And then came 1969, a year of immense social and political change, and the year a low-budget, independent film would not just feature Harley-Davidson, but make it a central character. That film was Easy Rider. Easy Rider was more than a movie. It was a cultural phenomenon. Starring Peter Fonda as Wyatt and Dennis Hopper as Billy, the film followed two free-spirited bikers on a journey across America. They weren't criminals in the classic sense, but they were definitely outcasts, searching for their place in a country that seemed to have lost its way. Their rides were two of the most famous motorcycles in history, the Captain America and Billy bike choppers. These weren't stock bikes. They were heavily customized Harley-Davidson Hydroglides. Captain America, with its stars and stripes painted tank, ridiculously long front forks, and high handlebars, became an instant icon of the counterculture. It was a rolling piece of folk art, a two-wheeled declaration of independence. The bike wasn't just transportation. It was an extension of Wyatt's soul, representing a complex blend of patriotism and disillusionment. Easy Rider completely redefined the biker on screen. Wyatt and Billy weren't just rebelling for the sake of it like Brando's Johnny. They were on a spiritual quest. They were dreamers, modern-day cowboys chasing a fleeting vision of freedom in a landscape that was becoming increasingly hostile to their ideals. The film's tagline, "A man went looking for America and couldn't find it anywhere," resonated deeply with audiences. The film's stunning cinematography showcased the beauty of the American West, turning the journey itself into the destination. The scenes of Wyatt and Billy cruising through Monument Valley, set to the soundtrack of Steppenwolf's Born to Be Wild, are now legendary. That song became the unofficial anthem for bikers everywhere, and the sequence forever fused the image of a Harley chopper with the ultimate feeling of liberation on the open road. Easy Rider cemented Harley's image not just as the ride of the outlaw, but as the ride of the dreamer, the philosopher, the seeker. It showed that the person on the bike could be thoughtful, introspective, and profoundly American. The film was a massive commercial success, proving that the counterculture had a powerful voice and a huge audience. And at the center of it all was the unmistakable profile of a Harley-Davidson chopper. From the brooding rebellion of the Wild One to the psychedelic quest of Easy Rider, Hollywood had crafted a powerful and enduring mythology for Harley-Davidson. It was the ride for those who lived by their own rules, whether they were rebelling against small-town conformity or searching for the soul of a nation. This celluloid legacy is inseparable from the brand's identity. When you see a Harley today, you don't just see a motorcycle, you see Brando's defiant slouch. You see Fonda's long forks pointed towards the horizon. You see decades of stories about freedom, rebellion, and the endless promise of the open road. It's a legacy written in chrome and captured on film, a story that continues to inspire riders to this day. Thanks so much for joining me on this cinematic ride. It's amazing how a machine of metal and gears can come to represent so many of our deepest desires and dreams. If you enjoyed this chapter, please give the video a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss what's coming next. We've still got a lot of road to cover. Ride safe, and see you in the next one. Scene opens with a montage of diverse Harley riders, men, women, different ages, different backgrounds, all smiling, riding, and interacting at rallies and on the road. The sound of a Harley engine revs and then settles into a steady rumble. Hello, fellow riders and enthusiasts, and welcome back to our journey through the heart of motorcycling culture. Today, we're diving into something truly special. Something that transforms a piece of machinery into a ticket to a global family. This is Chapter 12, the Harley Brotherhood. When you buy a Harley-Davidson, you're not just getting a motorcycle. You're receiving an invitation. An invitation to join a tribe, a community bound together by the rumble of a V-twin engine, the glint of chrome in the sun, and an unshakable sense of loyalty. This isn't just about riding. It's about belonging. At the very core of this global family is the Harley Owners Group, or as it's affectionately known, HOG. Founded in 1983, HOG was created to build on the powerful grassroots loyalty that Harley riders already shared. The company recognized that the passion for their bikes went far beyond the dealership floor. It was happening on the open road, in small-town diners, and at impromptu roadside meets. They wanted to give that passion a home, a structure, and a way to connect riders from every corner of the globe. And connect they did. Today, HOG is one of the largest and most successful factory-sponsored motorcycle clubs in the world, boasting over 1 million members. Think about that for a second. 1 million people from all walks of life united by a single brand. It's a testament to the power of shared identity. So what does it mean to be a part of HOG? Well, it's about shared experiences. It's the local chapter rides on a Sunday morning, exploring scenic backroads you never knew existed. It's the massive rallies where thousands of bikes descend on a city, creating a thunderous rolling parade of chrome and steel. It's the charity events, the toy runs, and the community fundraisers where the leather-clad image of the tough biker is replaced by the reality of a generous, big-hearted community giving back. The local chapter is really the lifeblood of HOG. These are the grassroots groups that organize regular events. Whether it's a dinner ride to a favorite local restaurant, a weekend trip to a national park, or a workshop on basic motorcycle maintenance, these chapters provide the framework for friendship and adventure. You meet people from your town you might never have crossed paths with otherwise. Doctors, mechanics, teachers, entrepreneurs, all shedding their daily titles to simply be riders. A friend of mine, a HOG member for over 20 years, put it perfectly. He said, "Before I joined, I had a bike. After I joined, I had 100 riding buddies and a calendar full of plans." That's the magic of it. It instantly solves the problem of who to ride with and where to go. It opens up a whole new world of social connection, built around the activity you love most. And it's not just about the guys. The Ladies of Harley, or LOH, is a vital and vibrant part of the HOG community. It was established to support the growing number of female motorcycle enthusiasts, whether they're riding their own bike or riding as a passenger. It creates a welcoming space for women to connect, share their experiences, and encourage each other in a traditionally male-dominated world. They organize their own rides, events, and charity initiatives, proving that the spirit of the open road knows no gender. It's about empowerment, friendship, and the shared joy of the ride. But the Harley Brotherhood extends beyond organized events. It's an unwritten code. It's the subtle nod you exchange with another Harley rider at a stoplight. It's pulling over to help a fellow rider stranded on the side of the road. No questions asked, because you know they'd do the same for you. It's the immediate conversation starter you have with a complete stranger in a different country, simply because you both have that bar and shield logo on your jackets. I once saw this in action on a trip through the mountains. A rider's bike had a flat tire, miles from the nearest town. Before he could even get his phone out, two other Harleys had pulled over. One guy had a patch kit, the other had a portable compressor. Within an hour, they had him back on the road. They weren't from the same chapter. They'd never met before, and they might never meet again. But in that moment, they were brothers. That's the bond. It's an unspoken promise of mutual support. This sense of community is a powerful marketing tool, of course, but to dismiss it as just that would be a disservice to the millions who live it. For many, HOG and the wider Harley family provide a sense of identity and belonging that can be hard to find in our modern, disconnected world. It's a counterculture that has become a culture of its own. It's a place where you're judged not by your job title or your bank account, but by the miles you've ridden and the respect you show to others. The symbols of this brotherhood are iconic. The leather, often adorned with patches, tells a story. Each patch can represent a rally attended, a milestone achieved, or a membership in a specific chapter. It's a wearable history of your journey as a rider. It's a conversation starter and a badge of honor. The chrome, meticulously polished, reflects the pride of ownership. A clean bike is a loved bike, and that pride is a cornerstone of the Harley identity. This global community also breaks down barriers. At AHOG Rally in Europe, you'll see riders from Spain, Germany, Italy, and the UK, all communicating through the universal language of a shared passion. The bikes are the common ground. They transcend politics, language, and cultural differences. The roar of 100 engines starting up in unison is a powerful symbol of unity. It's a sound that says, we are different, but here, today, we are one. This brotherhood is about creating memories that last a lifetime. It's the story of the cross-country trip you took with your chapter. It's the laughter shared around a campfire after a long day's ride. It's the feeling of being part of a massive parade of bikes, with people lining the streets to watch you go by. These are the moments that forge the family part of the Harley family. So, when you see a group of Harley-Davidsons thundering down the highway, remember what you're really looking at. It's not just a collection of motorcycles. It's a convoy of friends. It's a rolling family reunion. It's the Harley Brotherhood in motion, a global community connected by leather, chrome, loyalty, and the unshakable belief that the best way to see the world is on two wheels, with your family riding right alongside you. Thanks for joining me on this chapter of our journey. It's been a privilege to share the story of this incredible community with you. If you have your own HOG stories or experiences with the Harley Brotherhood, I'd love to read them in the comments below. Don't forget to hit that like button if you enjoyed the video, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss what's coming next. Until then, ride safe, and we'll see you on the open road. Welcome back to our journey through the heart of American iron. Today we're diving deep into the soul of Harley-Davidson, exploring the mechanical artistry that has powered legends for generations. This is the story of design evolution, from the iconic panhead to the revolutionary evolution engine. Each one isn't just a motor. It's a chapter in a saga of power, passion, and relentless refinement. Let's fire up our time machine and travel back to 1948. The war is over. The open road is calling, and Harley-Davidson introduces an engine that would become a cultural icon, the panhead. Why? Panhead? Well, just look at those rocker covers. They look like upside-down cooking pans, don't they? Simple, effective, and visually unforgettable. The panhead was more than just a new look. It was a significant leap forward. It introduced aluminum cylinder heads for better cooling and hydraulic valve lifters, which made maintenance much simpler for the average rider. This wasn't just an engine, it was a statement. It was the sound of post-war freedom, a reliable partner for cross-country adventures. The panhead's distinctive potato idle became the anthem of a new generation of bikers, cementing its place in motorcycle history and pop culture forever. It powered bikes like the Hydroglide, which brought the first hydraulic front forks to Harley's big twins, offering a smoother ride than ever before. For 17 years, the Panhead was the undisputed king of the road, a testament to its robust design and enduring appeal. Then, as the 60s started to swing, the culture shifted, and so did Harley's engineering. The demand for more power and performance was growing. In 1966, the Panhead passed the torch to a new contender, the Shovelhead. And yes, you guessed it, the name came from the rocker boxes, which looked like the back of a coal shovel. The Shovelhead was all about upping the ante. It boasted a redesigned combustion chamber and a stronger bottom end, giving it a 10% power boost right out of the gate. This was the engine that powered Harley through some of its most turbulent and defining years. It was the heart of the iconic Electra Glide, a bike that defined the Grand American Touring motorcycle. The Shovelhead era was a roller coaster, from the AMF years with their controversial quality control to the legendary employee buyout in 1981 that brought Harley back from the brink. The Shovelhead became a symbol of resilience, both for the company and for the riders who loved and meticulously maintained these powerful, character-filled machines. It was an engine with a raw, visceral personality, demanding a certain connection with its owner. It wasn't always the easiest, but for those who understood it, the reward was a ride like no other. By the early 1980s, the writing was on the wall. Stricter emissions regulations, noise ordinances, and fierce competition meant Harley needed another revolution. They needed an engine that could carry the company into the modern era without sacrificing the V-twin soul that defined it. The answer, arriving in 1984 after 7 long years of development, was nothing short of groundbreaking. It was called the Evolution Engine, or EVO for short, and the name said it all. This was a quantum leap forward. The EVO was an all-aluminum engine, making it significantly lighter and much, much better at dissipating heat. It was also vastly more reliable and oil-tight, finally shedding the old stereotype of Harleys marking their territory wherever they parked. Engineers used computer-aided design for the first time, creating a motor that was stronger, more efficient, and required far less maintenance. But here's the magic. Despite all the high-tech improvements, they kept the classic 45-degree V-twin architecture. They preserved the look, the feel, and most importantly, the sound. The EVO saved Harley-Davidson. It powered the Softail family, which brilliantly hid its rear suspension to mimic the classic hardtail look, and it brought a new wave of riders into the fold. It proved that tradition and technology could coexist, creating a motorcycle that was both classic and thoroughly modern. The EVO was so successful and beloved that it remained in production for the big twin lineup for over 15 years. So from the classic cool of the Panhead, through the raw power of the Shovelhead, to the game-changing reliability of the Evolution, this journey shows us more than just engineering. It shows us a continuous process of refinement, a conversation between the past and the future. Each engine built upon the legacy of the one before it, solving problems, increasing performance, and adapting to a changing world, all while keeping that unmistakable Harley-Davidson spirit alive. They are the rhythmic heartbeats of the American road, each with its own unique story to tell. It is a testament to the idea that true evolution isn't about forgetting where you came from, but about building on that foundation to create a stronger future. These engines aren't just lumps of metal, they are the soul of the machine. Thank you for joining us on this ride through Harley-Davidson's engine history. It's a story we're passionate about, and we hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. If you love motorcycles and their stories, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the notification bell so you don't miss our next chapter. We'd love to hear from you in the comments. Which of these classic engines is your favorite? Until next time, ride safe and keep the rubber side down. The roaring success of the past few decades had built a seemingly invincible empire. It felt like the party would never end, like the good times were here to stay forever. But as the 1960s gave way to the 1970s, the music began to change. Dark clouds started gathering on the horizon, hinting at a storm that would test the very foundations of this legendary brand. This is the story of how the giant began to stumble, a period of trouble that would question its very survival. Welcome back to our series. In the last chapter, we celebrated the peak of innovation and market dominance. But no reign lasts forever without challenge. Today in Chapter 14, we're diving into the turbulent decades of the 1970s and 80s, a time of economic turmoil, fierce new competition, and a crisis of identity that nearly brought the company to its knees. The 1970s kicked off with a global gut punch, the oil crisis. Suddenly, the price of gasoline skyrocketed. The long-held American love affair with big, powerful, gas-guzzling engines was abruptly called into question. Commuters, who were the brand's bread and butter, started looking at their vehicles not just as symbols of freedom, but as drains on their wallets. The economic landscape was shifting under everyone's feet. Stagflation, that nasty combination of high inflation and stagnant economic growth, meant people had less money to spend, and what they did have was worth less. For a company built on the promise of robust, powerful performance, this was a direct challenge. Their core identity was suddenly at odds with the needs of the market. People weren't just looking for power anymore. They were looking for efficiency. And as our beloved brand struggled to adapt, a new challenger emerged from across the Pacific, one that was perfectly positioned for this new era. Enter Japan. While American manufacturers were masters of the big and bold, Japanese companies like Honda, Yamaha, and Kawasaki had spent years perfecting a different kind of machine, smaller, more fuel-efficient, and incredibly reliable. They weren't trying to beat the American giant at its own game. Instead, they created a whole new one. Their marketing was genius. They didn't sell their motorcycles as symbols of rugged rebellion. They sold them as practical, friendly, and fun. Remember those iconic ads with the tagline, "You meet the nicest people on a Honda"? It was a masterstroke. It took the motorcycle out of the leather-clad fringe and put it squarely into the mainstream suburban garage. It was a vehicle for commuting to work, for a weekend ride to the beach, for students getting around campus. It was accessible, affordable, and, most importantly, it just worked. This new competition hit like a tidal wave. For the first time, our brand wasn't just competing with other domestic rivals. It was facing a global force with a completely different philosophy. Japanese manufacturing techniques, which focused on continuous improvement and meticulous quality control, were setting a new standard. Their bikes were not only cheaper to buy and run, but they were also less likely to break down. They were, to put it bluntly, incredibly well made. And this is where our story takes a painful turn. As the brand scrambled to respond to this existential threat, it began to encounter its own internal demons. The pressure to cut costs in the face of a struggling economy and fierce competition led to compromises. The legendary build quality, the very bedrock of the brand's reputation for over half a century, began to slip. This period, from the mid-70s through the early 80s, is often referred to by loyalists as the dark years. Stories from that time are legendary, and not in a good way. New owners would ride their prized machines off the dealership lot, only to have parts rattle loose or engines leak oil just a few miles down the road. The phrase, "you had to be a mechanic to own one," became a common refrain. The very thing that had made the brand an icon, its reliability and durability, was becoming a punchline. It was a perfect storm. The economy was hostile, the competition was smarter and more efficient, and the product itself was faltering. The company's leadership seemed unable to steer the ship out of these troubled waters. A series of ownership changes and management shakeups only added to the instability. The focus became short-term survival rather than long-term vision. The innovation that had once defined the brand seemed to grind to a halt. Instead of leading the market, they were constantly playing catch-up, trying to imitate the features and styles of their Japanese rivals, but without the same level of refinement or quality. The loyal customer base, the diehards who had stood by the brand for generations, began to feel betrayed. They were paying a premium price for a name that no longer seemed to guarantee a premium product. They saw the company they loved losing its way, sacrificing its soul for quarterly reports. The disconnect between the brand's powerful heritage and its current reality was becoming painfully obvious. It was like watching a heavyweight champion past his prime stumbling around the ring, unable to land a punch. By the early 1980s, the situation was dire. The company was bleeding money, its market share had plummeted. The factory floors were plagued with inefficiency and labor disputes. The brand was on the brink of collapse. Pundits and industry analysts began writing its obituary. Was this it? Was this the end of the road for one of the most iconic manufacturing names in history? The question of survival was no longer a theoretical one. It was a daily, pressing reality. The company was staring into the abyss. But as we've seen time and again in this story, this brand is nothing if not a survivor. Just when it seemed all was lost, a plan began to form. A group of executives, true believers in the brand's potential, saw a path forward. It was a risky, audacious plan, one that would require a complete reinvention of the company from the ground up. It would mean betting everything on a return to the core values that had been lost: quality, innovation, and a deep connection with the rider. This desperate last-ditch effort would become one of the greatest comeback stories in business history. It was a fight for the soul of the company, a struggle to reclaim its legacy and prove to the world that the legend was not dead. The horizon was still dark with trouble, but for the first time in a long time, a flicker of light was beginning to appear. The fight was far from over, but the stage was set for a dramatic rebirth. What was this daring plan? How did they pull the company back from the brink of bankruptcy and set it on a course for a new golden age? That's the story for our next chapter. You won't want to miss it. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey through the brand's most challenging years. It's a crucial part of the story that makes its later triumphs even more meaningful. If you're finding this history as fascinating as we do, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the incredible comeback story in Chapter 15. We'd also love to hear your thoughts or personal stories from this era in the comments below. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time. Hello and welcome back to our series on the Titans of Industry. Today we're diving into one of the most incredible comeback stories in corporate history. Chapter 15, The Rebirth of a Legend. We're talking about Harley-Davidson. Picture this. The early 1980s. Harley-Davidson, an American icon, was on the ropes. Quality issues and fierce competition from Japanese manufacturers had pushed the company to the brink. It seemed like the roar of the V-twin engine was about to be silenced forever. But then, something remarkable happened. A group of 13 executives, led by Von Beals and Willie G. Davidson, believed in the brand's soul. They saw past the balance sheets and saw the legacy. In a bold, high-stakes move, they orchestrated a leveraged buyout, purchasing the company back from its corporate parent, AMF, in 1981. This wasn't just a business transaction. It was a rescue mission. They knew they couldn't just build better bikes. They had to rebuild the very idea of Harley-Davidson. The new leadership made a pact with their workforce and their customers. Their strategy was brilliant, focusing on three core pillars: nostalgia, craftsmanship, and the spirit of Americana. First, they looked back to what made Harley great. They studied the classic designs, the feel, the sound, that unmistakable potato idol. They weren't just selling motorcycles. They were selling a piece of history, a feeling of freedom that was deeply woven into the American fabric. This was nostalgia marketing at its finest. They tapped into a collective memory of open roads, leather jackets, and rebellion. The result was the Evolution engine, which was a massive leap forward in reliability but still retained that classic Harley character. Then came the focus on craftsmanship. The new management implemented world-class quality control systems, like just-in-time manufacturing and statistical process control techniques ironically perfected by their Japanese competitors. They empowered their employees on the factory floor, making quality everyone's responsibility. The bikes rolling off the assembly line were not just better. They were immaculately built. Each motorcycle was a testament to American engineering and pride. Owners weren't just buying a machine. They were investing in a piece of rolling art, a durable, reliable partner for the road ahead. This commitment to quality was non-negotiable, and it began to rebuild trust, one satisfied rider at a time. But perhaps the most powerful part of their revival was reigniting the spirit of Americana. Harley-Davidson doubled down on its identity as the quintessential American motorcycle. They understood that owning a Harley wasn't just about transportation. It was a lifestyle choice. They fostered a community. The Harley Owners Group, or HOG, was established in 1983. It was a stroke of genius. It transformed customers into family, creating a global tribe of enthusiasts united by their passion. Rallies, events, and local chapters built a powerful sense of belonging. Harley-Davidson became more than a brand. It became a cultural symbol, representing freedom, independence, and the rugged individualism of the American spirit. This potent combination of nostalgia, quality, and community was magnetic. The company's fortunes began to turn. They successfully petitioned for tariffs on imported heavyweight motorcycles, giving them breathing room to complete their turnaround. By the late 1980s, demand for Harleys was so high there were waiting lists. The company that was once on the verge of collapse had not only survived, but was thriving. It wasn't just an American phenomenon either. The allure of the Harley-Davidson legend spread across the globe. From Europe to Japan, riders were captivated by this authentic piece of American culture. The sound of a Harley rumbling through the streets of Tokyo or a mountain pass in the Alps became a symbol of global appeal. The story of Harley-Davidson's rebirth is more than just a business case study. It's a lesson in the power of passion, heritage, and believing in the soul of a brand. The new leadership didn't just save a company, they resurrected an icon. They proved that with the right vision and an unwavering commitment to quality and community, a legend can indeed be reborn, riding back into the hearts of millions around the world, stronger and more resonant than ever before. Thank you so much for joining us for this incredible story of revival. If you enjoyed this chapter, please give this video a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to ring the notification bell so you won't miss our next episode. Ride safe, and we'll see you on the next one. Welcome back to our journey through the heart of Harley-Davidson. Today, we're diving headfirst into Chapter 16, Custom Culture, the Art of the Chopper. This isn't just about motorcycles. It's about rolling sculpture, personal expression, and a revolution on two wheels. What happens when a Harley-Davidson motorcycle becomes a blank canvas? You get a chopper. The word itself conjures images of long front ends, gleaming chrome, and a rebellious spirit. But the chopper scene is so much more than that. It's a subculture, an art form, and a testament to the endless creativity of the human spirit. It's where the raw power of a V-twin engine meets the meticulous hands of an artist. The chopper movement exploded in the post-war era. Soldiers returning home, skilled in mechanics and craving freedom, started stripping down their military surplus Harleys. They got rid of anything non-essential. Bulky fenders, big seats, anything that added weight. They were chasing speed, agility, and a minimalist aesthetic. This was the birth of the bobber, the direct ancestor of the chopper. They were lean, mean, and built for a purpose. But as the 50s rolled into the 60s, something changed. The focus shifted from pure function to radical form. Riders started modifying the very frames of their bikes. This is where the term chopper comes from. They would literally chop the frame, S-neck, and weld in new pieces to rake out the front end, giving it that iconic stretched-out look. Sissy bars grew taller, gas tanks got smaller and more sculptural, and custom paint jobs became wild expressions of individuality. This was the era that cemented the chopper in popular culture. Think of the 1969 film Easy Rider *. Peter Fonda's Captain America and Dennis Hopper's Billy Bike weren't just props. They were characters in their own right. These bikes, built by Clifford Voss and Ben Hardy, showcased the chopper's potential to be a symbol of freedom and counterculture. Suddenly, the whole world saw what was brewing in the garages of Southern California. The beauty of the chopper scene is its democracy. It is a world where a backyard builder with a torch and a vision can be just as influential as a high-dollar custom shop. This is the soul of the culture, the garage builder. These are the men and women who spend countless nights and weekends, covered in grease and metal filings, turning a pile of parts into a masterpiece. Every weld, every bend, every polished piece of chrome tells a story of their passion and dedication. For these builders, it's not about following a manual. It's about problem-solving, innovating, and leaving their personal mark on the machine. They might hand-fabricate a unique set of handlebars, hammer out a custom oil tank from a sheet of steel, or spend weeks perfecting a one-of-a-kind paint job with intricate pinstriping and metal flake. The result is a motorcycle that is a true extension of its creator, a one-off work of art that will never be duplicated. Of course, the custom scene also has its rock stars designers who have taken the art form to a global stage. Names like Arlen Ness, the king of custom, who started in his own garage in the 1960s, and built an empire on his futuristic designs and innovative parts. His creations pushed the boundaries of what a motorcycle could be, blending flowing lines and bold colors in ways no one had ever seen. Then you have designers like Paul Yaff, Jesse James, and the Tutul family of Orange County Choppers fame. These builders, each with their own distinct style, brought the art of the chopper into our living rooms through television. They showed millions that building a custom bike was a high-stakes, high-pressure art form. Whether it was Jesse James's dedication to old-school metalworking or the Tutul's dramatic, themed builds, they fueled a new renaissance in custom culture. This renaissance is alive and well today. The styles have evolved, but the core spirit remains the same. You have the resurgence of traditional 60s and 70s style choppers, Frisco mounts, king and queen seats, and tall sissy bars. At the same time, you have the performance-oriented club style, or Dynabuilds, which focus on horsepower and handling, proving that custom doesn't have to mean sacrificing rideability. Modern technology has also opened up new avenues for creativity. CNC machining allows for incredibly intricate and precise parts, while new painting techniques offer finishes that were unimaginable a few decades ago. But even with all this new tech, the old-school skills of welding, metal shaping, and hand finishing are more respected than ever. Ultimately, a custom Harley is more than just a motorcycle. It's a statement. It's a declaration of independence from the mass-produced. It's a physical manifestation of a builder's imagination, skill, and soul. From the simplest bobber built in a dimly lit garage to the most extravagant show-winning chopper, each bike is a unique chapter in the ongoing story of Harley-Davidson. They are proof that when you give people a great engine and a strong frame, they won't just build a machine, they'll create art. This is the enduring legacy of the chopper, a true American art form born from a love for the open road. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive into custom culture. It's a world we're incredibly passionate about. If you enjoyed this, please hit that like button and consider subscribing for more stories from the world of Harley-Davidson. Ride safe, and we'll see you in the next chapter. For decades, the image of a motorcycle rider was crystal clear. A man, probably bearded, clad in leather, astride a powerful machine. But look around today. That picture has changed, expanded, and become so much more vibrant. Today, we're talking about the pioneers. The trailblazers, the women who heard the call of the open road and answered it with a roar of their own. This is the story of women on Harleys. Let's rewind the clock. The world of motorcycling wasn't always welcoming to women. It was seen as a man's domain, a rough and tumble world where women were passengers, not pilots. But some women refused to just ride on the back. They wanted the handlebars in their own hands. They wanted to feel the engine's rumble directly, to choose their own path, and to experience the same freedom their male counterparts cherished. One of the earliest and most iconic figures was Effie Hotchkiss. Back in 1915, can you even imagine? She and her mother, Avis, decided to ride from Brooklyn, New York, all the way to San Francisco for the Panama Pacific International Exposition. They did it on a brand new Harley-Davidson, complete with a sidecar for her mom. They weren't just going for a joyride. They were crossing a continent, navigating rough, unpaved roads, and proving that a woman's place was wherever she wanted it to be, including the rider's seat. They became the first women to complete a transcontinental motorcycle journey, and their story was an inspiration. Then you have the legendary Dot Robinson, co-founder of the Motormaids, the first women's motorcycle club in North America, established in 1940. Dot wasn't just a rider. She was a force of nature. For over 50 years, she was the face of female motorcycling, known for her signature pink riding gear and her incredible endurance. The Motormaids created a community, a sisterhood, a place where women could share their passion, support each other, and ride together. They showed the world that women weren't just a novelty on two wheels. They were a serious, organized, and passionate part of the culture. These early pioneers literally paved the way. They faced skepticism, stereotypes, and sometimes outright hostility. People would stare, make comments, or assume they couldn't handle their bikes. But with every mile they rode, they chipped away at those old-fashioned ideas. They proved that skill, passion, and a love for the road have no gender. They demonstrated that the feeling of freedom, the connection with the machine and the landscape, that's a universal human experience. The rise of women riders wasn't just about individual journeys. It was a cultural shift. As more women started riding, the industry began to notice. Harley-Davidson, to its credit, started to see the potential. They began designing gear that was actually made for women, not just smaller versions of men's clothing. They developed bikes with lower seat heights and more accessible controls, like the Sportster, making it easier for a wider range of people to find their perfect fit. It was a smart move, recognizing that the brotherhood of the road was expanding to include sisters. This change accelerated in the latter half of the 20th century. The social movements of the 60s and 70s encouraged women to break traditional roles in all aspects of life, and motorcycling was no exception. Riding a Harley became a powerful statement of independence and self-reliance. It was about taking control, not just of a machine, but of your own life and your own adventure. It was a tangible, thrilling expression of personal freedom. Today, women are one of the fastest-growing demographics in motorcycling. You see them everywhere, from solo adventurers crossing deserts to all-female riding clubs taking over city streets for charity rides. Groups like the Litas, Stilettos on Steel, and the Furies have built on the legacy of the Motormaids, creating global networks of support, friendship, and empowerment. These clubs aren't just about riding. They're about community. They organize events, teach maintenance workshops, and provide a safe space for new riders to learn and grow in confidence. What drives this passion? Talk to any woman who rides and you'll hear a common theme: empowerment. There's a profound sense of accomplishment in mastering a powerful machine, in navigating a challenging road, in relying on your own skills to take you wherever you want to go. It's a confidence that bleeds into every other part of your life. The focus and presence required to ride is a form of meditation, a way to clear your head and connect with the present moment in a way that's hard to find anywhere else. And let us be clear, these women aren't trying to be one of the guys. They are forging their own identity within the motorcycle world. They bring their own style, their own perspective, and their own sense of community. They've shown that the brotherhood of the open road was never really about gender. It was always about a shared spirit, a spirit of adventure, freedom, and mutual respect among those who understand the unique joy of life on two wheels. The image of the Harley rider has been permanently redrawn. It's no longer a monolith. It's a mosaic of faces, genders, and backgrounds, all united by the rumble of a V-twin engine and a love for the horizon. The women who kicked open the doors of this once exclusive club didn't just join the brotherhood. They transformed it into a family, making it richer, more inclusive, and stronger than ever before. From Effie Hotchkiss's daring cross-country trek to the thousands of women hitting the road today, their legacy is written in every mile marker they pass. They are not just women on the road. They are the heart of it. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey through history. It's a story that's still being written, and it's incredibly inspiring. If you enjoyed this, please give us a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next chapter. Ride safe, and see you on the road. Hello everyone, and welcome back to our deep dive into the legendary world of Harley-Davidson. In our final chapter, we roaring into the present day to tackle the biggest question of all. Can the quintessential American motorcycle brand survive the 21st century? Harley isn't just a company. It's an institution, a symbol of freedom and rebellion. But the road ahead is filled with twists and turns unlike any it has faced before. The world is changing at lightning speed. The rumble of the V-twin engine, once the undisputed soundtrack of the open road, is now competing with the silent hum of electric motors. This isn't just a new technology. It's a fundamental shift in what a motorcycle is. For a brand built on a specific sound, feel, and smell, the electric revolution poses an existential threat. How do you translate the soul of a Harley, that visceral, ground-shaking experience, into a battery and a motor? This is the challenge that led to the birth of the Livewire. When Harley-Davidson announced its first all-electric motorcycle, the world was stunned. It was a bold, risky move. The Livewire is fast like supercar fast. It's sleek, modern, and technologically advanced. But for many lifelong fans, it felt like a betrayal. They asked, is it still a Harley if it doesn't rumble? This question cuts to the very core of the brand's identity. Harley is betting that a new generation of riders, who grew up with smartphones and care about sustainability, will embrace this new vision. They're hoping the thrill of instant acceleration can create a new kind of Harley soul. But the transition has been rocky, and the Livewire has now been spun off into its own brand. A sign of just how tricky this balancing act is. But the challenges don't stop with electrification. Harley's traditional customer base, the baby boomers who grew up with Easy Rider, is getting older. To survive, Harley desperately needs to attract younger riders. But what do millennials and Gen Z want? They're more diverse, more urban, and often more budget-conscious. They value experiences over possessions and are less drawn to the heavy, chrome-laden cruisers that defined Harley for decades. Can the brand that symbolized rebellion for their parents and grandparents mean the same thing to them? Harley has been trying. They've launched smaller, more affordable models like the Street 500 and 750, designed for city riding. They've experimented with different styles, like the Bronx Street Fighter and the Pan America Adventure Bike. The Pan America, in particular, was a massive gamble. An adventure touring bike? From Harley-Davidson? It seemed crazy, but it's been surprisingly successful, winning awards and proving that Harley can compete in entirely new segments. It showed that the company is willing to break its own rules to find new riders. This willingness to experiment is crucial, but it's a tightrope walk. Move too far from your core, and you risk alienating the loyalists who have kept the brand alive for generations. And then there's the global map. For most of its history, Harley-Davidson was an unapologetically American brand. But today, the biggest growth markets for motorcycles are in Asia and Latin America. To succeed, Harley has to become a truly global company. This means building smaller, more accessible bikes tailored to local tastes and regulations, sometimes even manufacturing them overseas. This has caused a lot of controversy. For some, a Harley made outside of Milwaukee is not a real Harley. It is another example of the brand being torn between its heritage and the demands of the modern global economy. Can the spirit of Milwaukee be bottled and exported to Thailand or India? The company believes it must, or risk being left in the dust by competitors who have been global players for decades. So where does this leave us? Harley-Davidson is at a crossroads. It's trying to be everything to everyone: electric and gasoline, American and global, traditional and modern. Can it do all of this without losing its soul? What is the soul of Harley-Davidson in 2024? Is it the V-twin rumble? Is it the American flag? Or is it something more profound, a spirit of independence, a desire for the open road, a community of riders? Perhaps the soul of Harley isn't something that can be lost, but something that must evolve. Maybe the next generation of riders will find that same spirit of freedom on a silent electric bike, or on an adventure bike exploring a trail in the Himalayas. The engine may change, the riders may look different, but the fundamental human desire to explore and be free remains. The ultimate challenge for Harley-Davidson is to prove that it can continue to be the vehicle for that desire, no matter what form it takes. It's a battle for its very identity, and the final chapter has yet to be written. The road ahead is uncertain, but if there's one thing Harley has proven over 120 years, it's that it's a survivor. Thank you so much for joining me on this incredible journey through the history of Harley-Davidson. It's been an amazing ride. If you enjoyed this series, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you don't miss what's coming next. We have a lot more stories to tell. Ride safe, and see you in the next video. Welcome back to our channel. Today we're diving deep into something truly special. We're exploring Chapter 19, the spirit of the road. This isn't just about motorcycles. It's about the soul of the ride and the people who live it. We've had the incredible privilege of sitting down with real riders, veterans, globetrotters, and everyday dreamers who see their Harley not just as a machine, but as a vital part of who they are. You know, there's a unique sound that defines freedom for so many. It's that unmistakable rumble of a V-twin engine. But what does that sound really mean? For some, it's a call to adventure. For others, it's a form of therapy, a way to clear the mind on the open road. And for many, it's a connection to a global family. We're about to hear stories that go beyond the chrome and leather, stories that get to the heart of what it means to be a rider. Let's start with Mark, a veteran who served for over 2 decades. After returning to civilian life, he struggled to find his footing. The world felt different, quieter. He told us, "Out there you have a mission, a brotherhood. You come back, and that structure is gone." I felt lost. A friend suggested he try riding. He was skeptical at first, but the moment he sat on that Harley, something clicked. "The first time I twisted the throttle," he said with a smile, "it was like I could finally breathe again." It wasn't about speed or noise. It was about being in control of my own journey. Every mile I rode, I felt a piece of myself coming back together. For Mark, his bike became a bridge between his past and his future. It gave him a new mission: to explore, to connect, and to help other veterans find the same peace on 2 wheels. His story reminds us that sometimes the road is the best therapist. It doesn't ask questions. It just offers a path forward. Now let's meet Sarah, a traveler who has crossed continents on her trusty Softail. Before she started riding, Sarah described her life as predictable. She had a steady job, a nice apartment, but a voice inside kept whispering, "Is this it?" One day, she saw a documentary about a woman who rode her motorcycle across South America. A spark was lit. "I didn't even have a license," she laughed, "but I knew I had to do it. I took a safety course, bought a used bike, and just started. First, short trips on weekends, then longer ones. The fear was real, but the sense of accomplishment was so much bigger. Her biggest journey? A 6-month trip from Alaska to Argentina. She faced treacherous weather, mechanical breakdowns, and language barriers, but what she remembers most is the kindness of strangers. People everywhere wanted to help, she recalled. They'd offer me a meal, a place to sleep, or just a friendly conversation. They didn't see a stranger. They saw a fellow human on an adventure. Sarah's Harley wasn't just a mode of transport. It was her passport to a world of human connection. It taught her that the world is a far more welcoming place than we often led to believe. Her journey proves that the spirit of the road is fueled by courage and curiosity. And then there are the dreamers, like old John, a retired mechanic who spent his life fixing other people's vehicles. He'd always dreamed of owning a classic panhead, but family and finances always came first. I'd see them roll into the shop, he told us, his eyes twinkling, and I'd tell myself, one day, John, one day. That day came on his 65th birthday. His kids pooled their money and presented him with a rusty, forgotten 1948 panhead. It was a wreck, but to John it was the most beautiful thing he'd ever seen. He spent the next 2 years in his garage, meticulously restoring every single piece. It was a labor of love, a culmination of a lifetime of skill and passion. The first time I fired her up, he said, his voice thick with emotion, it was like hearing a memory come to life. This bike isn't just metal, it's my history. It's every late night I spent working, every sacrifice my wife and I made. It's the dream I never gave up on. John now rides his panhead to local shows. Not for the trophies, but to share his story. He shows us that a Harley can be more than a bike. It can be a rolling testament to a life well lived, a dream finally realized. These stories from Mark, Sarah, and John are just a few threads in a rich global tapestry. They reveal a profound truth. A Harley-Davidson is rarely just about getting from point A to point B. It's a catalyst for transformation. For the veteran, it's a tool for healing and finding a new kind of brotherhood. For the traveler, it's a key that unlocks the world and the hearts of its people. For the dreamer, it's the physical embodiment of a lifelong passion. What connects all these riders is a shared understanding. When they pass each other on the highway and give that subtle nod or a low-key wave, it's more than just a greeting. It's a sign of recognition. It says, I see you, I get it. We're part of the same tribe. This community is built on a foundation of mutual respect and a shared love for the freedom of the open road. It doesn't matter what you do for a living, where you come from, or what your story is. On the road, everyone is equal. This spirit isn't something you can buy or manufacture. It's earned. It's earned in the rain, in the sun, through breakdowns on the side of a lonely highway, and in the quiet moments of reflection at a scenic overlook. It is forged in the shared laughter at a rally and the silent companionship of a group ride. It's the feeling of being part of something bigger than yourself, a moving, breathing entity connected by asphalt and attitude. The bike is the anchor, but the rider is the soul. It becomes an extension of your personality, a reflection of your journey. Some bikes are pristine and polished, showing a meticulous and proud owner. Others are covered in the dust and grime of 1,000 miles, each scratch telling a story of an adventure lived. Both are beautiful, because both are authentic. In a world that's becoming increasingly digital and disconnected, the act of riding is defiantly analog. It forces you to be present. You feel the wind, you smell the rain on the pavement, you see the world without a screen in between. It's a sensory experience that grounds you in the here and now. It's a rebellion against the mundane, a declaration that you choose to live, not just exist. So the next time you hear that iconic rumble, listen a little closer. It's not just an engine, it's the sound of a veteran finding peace. It's the sound of a traveler discovering the world. It's the sound of a dreamer's hard work paying off. It's the collective heartbeat of a community that understands that the journey, not the destination, is what truly matters. It is the very spirit of the road. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey today. These stories have been an honor to share, and they remind us of the power of passion and community. What does the spirit of the road mean to you? We'd love to read your stories in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to our channel for more content like this. Ride safe, and we'll see you on the road. And so, we arrive at the end of our journey, but not the end of the road. Because for Harley-Davidson, the road never truly ends. It stretches on, over the horizon, a continuous ribbon of asphalt, calling to the next generation of riders. We've ridden through more than a century of history, from a humble wooden shed in Milwaukee to a global icon. We've seen Harley-Davidson survive world wars, economic depressions, fierce competition, and the shifting tides of culture. Through it all, that distinctive V-twin rumble has remained a constant, a heartbeat for the American dream on two wheels. What is it about these machines that captures our imaginations so completely? It's more than just chrome and steel. It's a feeling. It's the wind in your face, the sun on your back, and the knowledge that you are utterly, completely free. It's the promise that adventure is just a twist of the throttle away. Think about it. When you see a Harley, what do you see? You don't just see a motorcycle, you see a story. You see the lone rider silhouetted against a desert sunset. You see a group of friends, a brotherhood and sisterhood, sharing miles and memories. You see the rebel, the outlaw, the individual who refuses to be tamed or categorized. Harley-Davidson didn't just build motorcycles, they built a mythology. They gave a voice to the restless spirit that lies within so many of us. In the 1950s, it was the symbol of youthful rebellion, a rejection of conformity. In the 60s and 70s, it was the right of choice for the counterculture, for those seeking a different path. And today? Today it's all of that and more. It's the weekend warrior escaping the 9-to-5 grind, the long-distance tourer discovering the country 1 mile at a time, the custom builder pouring their soul into a unique creation. It's a canvas for self-expression. No two Harleys are truly alike because no two riders are truly alike. Each bike is a reflection of its owner's personality, a rolling piece of art. This is the genius of Harley-Davidson. They understood that they weren't just selling transportation. They were selling an identity, a lifestyle, a community. When you buy a Harley, you're not just buying a machine. You're buying a ticket to a worldwide family, bound by a shared passion. This community is the lifeblood of the brand. It's the local HOG chapters organizing charity rides. It's the seasoned veteran sharing a tip with a new rider at a roadside stop. It is the shared nod of respect between two strangers on Harleys passing each other on the highway. It's a powerful, unspoken connection. And let's talk about craftsmanship. In an age of disposable everything, Harley-Davidson stands as a testament to American-made quality. There's a weight to these bikes, a substance. You feel the history, the legacy of all the hands that built them. The engine isn't just a power source. It's the heart and soul of the bike. That potato, potato, potato idle is one of the most recognizable sounds in the world, a rhythm that speaks of power, heritage, and endurance. As the world continues to change, so too will Harley-Davidson. We're seeing it already with the introduction of new technologies and electric models like the Livewire. Some may see this as a departure from tradition, but isn't this what Harley has always done? Adapt, innovate, and survive. The spirit of the brand isn't tied to gasoline. It's tied to the feeling of freedom and the thrill of the ride. The legend isn't static. It evolves. The core of what makes a Harley, that feeling of rebellion, of independence, of being part of something bigger than yourself that will never change. It's an idea, a timeless symbol. It represents the belief that the journey is just as important, if not more so, than the destination. So, as we bring our story to a close, remember this. The legend of Harley-Davidson isn't just written in history books or captured in documentaries like this one. It's written every single day, on every road, in every country, by every single person who throws a leg over one of these iconic machines and points it toward the horizon. The story continues with every sunrise glinting off a chrome fender, with every engine that roars to life, and with every mile that disappears into the rearview mirror. The legend doesn't have an ending, it just has the next mile. The road rolls on forever. Thank you so much for joining us on this incredible ride through the history of Harley-Davidson. If you've enjoyed this series, please give this video a like, and if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you don't miss what we have coming next. Until then, ride safe and keep the shiny side up.